In Jamaica, in 1668, a girl, after exchanging hormones with a Navy officer, is getting dressed. This girl is Morgan, and immediately the Navy officer points a gun at Morgan and tells her that he knew before she was a pirate, but first, he wanted to enjoy himself and then capture her. Morgan's friends were waiting for Morgan downstairs. That's why Morgan tells him that she also knew that he knew. That's why she took all his bullets. After that, she takes her monkey and escapes from there. Morgan's friends tell Morgan that Uncle Dog has abducted her father, so she immediately goes towards Uncle Dog's ship. She takes care of a man on a small boat and then takes his boat to Uncle Dog's ship. Uncle Dog had her father, Harry, standing on the corner of the ship because he wanted Harry's map to Treasure Island, but Harry refused. He threw the anchor in the water and jumped in himself. Morgan reaches over and grabs her father's hand, but Uncle Dog's men open fire on them both, with one bullet entering Harry's body. Suddenly, the anchor dog had fastened to Harry's leg, had pulled him underwater. Morgan jumps into the water beside her father and starts to cut the rope that is around Harry's leg. She manages to save her father, disappears from view, and swims to shore, while Dog's men in their boat try to find her. Harry is hurt and on the verge of death when he tells his daughter that she must cut off his scalp because he has a map to Treasure Island tattooed on his head. Morgan returns to her father's ship, the Morning Star, and spends her time drinking alcohol in the cargo bay, until some of her men inform her that the other crew members are going to take over the ship and select a new captain. Morgan goes upstairs to declare herself a candidate for captaincy. She displays the map that her father had tattooed on his head to the crew and assures them that we will all become extremely wealthy if we manage to find this treasure. The only literate man on the boat is John Reed, and he takes a look at the map and tells them that the map is in Latin and he can't read Latin. Then Morgan also tells them that there are two more pieces to this map. One piece is in Uncle Mordecai's possession, and the other piece is in the possession of Uncle Dog, but her crew chooses her as captain. On the other hand, a party is going on, and Captain Trotter is enjoying free food in the corner. But Governor Patrick comes to him and tells him to stop eating and get a chick for himself, who is standing all alone in the corner. As soon as Captain Trotter approaches the girl, another guy comes and starts talking with the girl. This guy is William Shaw, who pretends to be a doctor, but in reality, he is a thief. Then he starts dancing with her, and while dancing, he steals all her jewelry and goes away. While Shaw is looking at his stolen jewelry, Trotter stops him from behind and starts asking him questions. Shaw replies by saying that he is a doctor and takes the name of the ship he arrived on. But Trotter tells him the ship you are talking about will arrive next week. Trotter realizes that Shaw is lying. Shaw immediately makes a run for it and climbs on a balcony and jumps down, but to no avail. Soldiers catch him, and Trotter smacks him on the head, and the governor orders him to be put in jail. But Morgan travels to Jamaica with her group in search of a man who is able to read and write Latin. She learns of a man named Shaw, who is incarcerated, and visits him. She instructs him to speak some Latin, and he does. Morgan resolves to buy Shaw at any cost, because Shaw's ability to read Latin would be necessary for her to acquire the vast Spanish treasure. After a while, the auction of prisoners begins, and Shaw is brought up for sale. Morgan tries to buy Shaw, but someone else bids more than she does. She raises her own bid as well, but the other guy wants to buy Shaw too. So she sends a crew member to stop him, but he does not back down and keeps bidding. Some soldiers recognize Morgan from her wanted poster. Upon realizing this, Morgan walks up to the man and puts her knife in his rear, causing him to immediately retreat. Morgan purchases Shaw, but it is too late. Soldiers are closing in on her from all sides. Morgan gives the order for her crew to flee, grabs Shaw, and heads in a new direction. The moment she gets to a building's entrance, soldiers emerge from within. She punches one of the soldiers and takes Shaw and runs to the other side. Additionally, there are soldiers present. She cuts the rope of a small elevator, and they both hang on to it to go to the top of the building. Morgan and Shaw then go to the opposite side of the building and jump down from there, landing roughly. Morgan rips her dress and hijacks the governor's buggy. Both of them escape on the governor's buggy, and the governor is left staring at them. Morgan is riding the buggy through the streets of Jamaica at full speed as soldiers attack her from all sides. One soldier jumps on the buggy. Morgan beats him up and throws him overboard, but a massive army of soldiers is pursuing her. She then leaps onto the roof of a house and returns to the buggy from the other side. The governor orders his ship docked in the harbor to bombard Morgan with cannonballs, and the ship starts to fire on Morgan. The cannonballs start falling near Morgan, but are not able to hit her. Morgan escapes, and the soldiers, in their stupidity, destroy the whole harbor. Morgan then reaches a safe place and stops the buggy, and then reaches down in her pants and takes out her piece of the map and shows it to Shaw to translate. And Shaw said, "If you set me free, only then will I tell you what's written on this map." Morgan takes out her knife and pokes his eggs, and immediately Shaw gets on to translating the map. But in the knife's reflection, Morgan realizes that the map is written backwards, and they finally find their first clue. After that, Morgan goes to Spitalfield Harbor to see her uncle, Mordecai, to somehow persuade him to give her the piece of the map that he has. But Uncle Mordecai has strengthened his security because of the fear of Uncle Dog. Morgan and group are trying to make a plan to reach Mordecai. Meanwhile, Morgan sees a hooker, and she goes to talk with her and buys the clothes she is wearing. Morgan, now dressed as a hooker, reaches Uncle Mordecai's room. Guards stop her before she could enter the room. First, they do a body search, then let her in. Mordecai immediately recognizes her and goes straight for his gun, but stops when he sees Morgan's gun. Then Morgan shows him her piece of the map, and he immediately recognizes the skin of his brother. Morgan offers to divide the treasure equally, at which Mordecai agrees, and they both shake hands after making a deal. Morgan comes outside, and immediately, Dog's man puts a chain around her neck and pulls her down. Dog's men capture Morgan's crew, and then Uncle Dog makes a grand entrance and tell Morgan that if you weren't my brother's daughter, you wouldn't be alive. That's why I am asking you one last time. Give me your piece of the map. Dog takes out an eel to threaten Morgan to give up her piece of the map. On the other hand, Shaw sets up a diversion so that he can save Morgan and then lights the gunpowder. The flame follows the guy dropping the gunpowder. There is a massive explosion, and then the full-on fight starts. Morgan and Shaw both start fighting Dog's men, and they both fight very bravely while they are fighting. Dog captures Mordecai to get his piece of the map, but as Dog is threatening Mordecai with a knife, his own man bumps him from behind, and the knife pierces Mordecai, fatally wounding him. Dog cuts his own man's throat. Near death, Mordecai crawls to an old broken barrel and grabs something and hides it in his chest. Shaw, who has already seen Mordecai hide something, comes and grabs the wooden piece on which Mordecai's piece of map is inscribed and runs away. Morgan sees this and swings to the other side of the room by hanging onto a chandelier. Dog shoots Morgan, injuring her. Morgan takes Shaw's sword and cuts down the chandelier. The chandelier falls on explosives, and everything starts to explode and catch on fire. Shaw and Morgan manage to escape, but as soon as they do, Dog's men approach them. However, a bald man from Morgan's crew shows up with reinforcements and begins shooting the Dog's men. Morgan and Shaw both jump down and are able to escape while Dog stays there and watches them in disappointment. Trotter, on the other hand, manages to apprehend John Reed, the only literate member of Morgan's crew, and takes him to the governor. When the governor threatens to put Reed in jail, Reed tells him everything about the Cutthroat treasure, so the governor designates him as his undercover agent and sends him back. Morgan then meets her ship, Morning Star, and Reed joins her. After giving orders to her crew, she goes to her room, applies alcohol to her wound, and then takes another sip. She begins to draw the longitudes and latitudes on a map that was written on her father's scalp skin. But she does not have the entire map, which is why she cannot pinpoint the location of Cutthroat Island. After drawing the map, she returns to the top to give her crew directions. But then, the bullet fired by her Uncle Dog begins to do its thing, causing Morgan to collapse. Her crew takes her down to her chamber, but Uncle Dog starts to follow Morgan's ship. Her crew takes the ship between islands to keep Morgan safe on the other side. Everyone is trying to do their experiments on Morgan until Shaw arrives and he says, "I am a doctor, so only I will treat her." Everybody goes outside, and Shaw starts to take out the bullet. Morgan knew that Shaw had taken Mordecai's map, so she tested him by saying, "If you give me Mordecai's map, I will split the treasure with you equally." But Shaw denied that he doesn't have the map and started exchanging hormones with Morgan. Suddenly, a crew member arrived, and they stopped. Later in the night, Shaw sneaks into Morgan's room and matches his piece of the map with Morgan's and draws the missing pieces. But Morgan comes up from behind and tells him that she knew he stole Mordecai's piece. Now she will reach Cutthroat Island with these two pieces, because now she has the exact location. When she takes Shaw up on the deck, John Reed sneaks in from behind, and he copies Morgan's whole map and sends it to the governor with the help of a carrier pigeon. The ship comes under a huge storm, and the waves are powerful. While Morgan is giving directions to the bald guy and her crew, a huge wave breaks all the windows of her room. At the same time, Uncle Dog's agents in Morgan's crew revolt against her. They take Morgan and her loyal crew captive, and then put them in boats and leave them in the ocean by themselves without any food or water. Shaw, who is chained in the cargo bay, also manages to free himself. He comes up on deck and jumps towards Morgan's boat, and then climbs onto the boat. Morgan and her crew try their best to steer the boat, but the boat capsizes due to strong waves. Morgan and her crew vanish in the vast sea. In the morning, Morgan and her crew are floating on the pieces of their boat, but they are very close to Cutthroat Island. Everybody becomes happy to see the island and starts swimming towards the island. After reaching the island, Morgan puts both her pieces on the ground and takes a look at them and tells everyone that they need Uncle Dog's piece of the map to find the pinpoint location of the Spanish treasure. And then they walk into the forest so that no one sees them. But Uncle Dog has already arrived on Cutthroat Island because of the directions given to him by John Reed. Morgan watches from afar. Her ship, Morning Star, has also reached Cutthroat Island, and Morgan's men have sided with Uncle Dog. After that, Uncle Dog threatens the long-haired dude that if he tries to betray Dog like he did Morgan, he won't live to see the next day. The night falls, and everyone goes to sleep in Uncle Dog's camp. Shaw sneaks into Dog's room and cuts his piece of the map from his neck. Uncle Dog wakes up because of a spider walking on him, but it's too late as Shaw is already gone with the map. Uncle Dog screams angrily, and Morgan is watching all this from afar as Shaw escapes Dog's camp. He gets happy by watching the map because no one hits the jackpot twice in a row, but he did. But Shaw's luck runs out because, in the night, while running, he gets stuck in quicksand. And when Morgan reaches him in the morning, most of his body is stuck inside quicksand. Morgan tells him to give her the map, but Shaw says, "First, get me out, then I will give you the map." But Morgan says, "If I pull you out, you will run away, so give me the map first." Shaw doesn't have a choice, so he puts the map on Morgan's dagger as he is about to go inside quicksand completely. Morgan orders her men to take him out, and her men pull Shaw out with the help of a stick. Then they put all three pieces of the treasure map on a leaf and pinpoint the exact location of the Spanish treasure, and they start to move in the direction of the Spanish gold. They reach a cliff, and by the directions on the map, they would have to walk in the air. But then Morgan and Shaw use their intelligence and, with the help of ropes, go down the cliff, where they see a cave. They start to swing and then land in the cave, but on the cliff, Bald Dude smells trouble, so he and the other members vanish there, so that they are not caught, and the cave remains hidden as Morgan and Shaw walk inside the cave. They see numerous skeletons as they go further inside the cave. Shaw slips, but Morgan saves him from falling. The cave finally opens up into a big chamber, and when Morgan and Shaw look down, they see huge amounts of gold piled up in the water. This is the famous Spanish treasure everyone has been wanting to get their hands on, but Shaw and Morgan have finally found it. Morgan and Shaw go mad with joy and swim to the treasure. and start to watch all the gold and diamonds that are in the treasure. Shaw tells Morgan to go to the top, as he will drag all this treasure to the cave's mouth. Morgan then climbs the rope and reaches the top of the cliff. But on the top, there are none of her crew members, which makes Morgan skeptical, and she takes out her dagger and starts searching for her crew, who are nowhere to be found. She sees one of Uncle Dog's men in a tree, and as she turns, she gets punched in the face. Shaw takes a box of the treasure and hangs it by the rope so that Morgan can pull it up, and he also grabs the other rope. But as he is looking up, Dog brings Morgan to the cliff and threatens to throw her into the sea. Shaw tells Dog to send Morgan down, and he will send the box up, but Dog throws Morgan down. Shaw catches her, but Dog's men start to pull Morgan and Shaw up. Shaw tells Morgan that if they get caught, the game is over, so both of them jump into the sea, where a huge wave engulfs both of them. After a while, John Reed finds Shaw unconscious at the shore. John wakes Shaw up, and immediately Shaw asks about Morgan, and John says, "I will take you to her." Shaw still doesn't know that John is a spy, and John takes Shaw back to where Dog and the governor are sitting. In anger, Shaw punches John in the stomach, but now it's too late, and the governor's soldiers take Shaw captive. Dog has already loaded all the treasure onto his ship and has made a deal with the governor to split all the treasure, so both of them take up their anchors and start to depart from the island. Morgan's men have been detained on her ship, the Morning Star. Morgan also comes out of the sea to see that her ship is about to leave. She quickly hangs on to the anchor and goes aboard without being seen, and secretly goes to the cargo bay where her men are being kept. She beats up a soldier and frees all her men. As Lair Dude is happy that he got to become the captain of Morgan's ship, Morgan and her men show up from behind, take control of their ship again, and throw the long-haired dude and his men overboard like they did to Morgan. After that, Morgan goes to her room and finds her monkey hiding in the box. Now, Morgan and her crew start to prepare for a full-on war against Uncle Dog and his men. First, the governor notices that Morgan's ship is coming close to them very quickly. He thinks that Trotter is in a hurry, but when Dog sees the ship, he realizes something is off and orders his men to bring Shaw up. Dog plans to execute Shaw on the mast of the ship so that Morgan exposes herself. Morgan and her crew remain hidden on their ship, but Morgan is secretly in love with Shaw and points a gun at Dog's man who is holding Shaw so that she does not expose herself before the right time. But the bald dude is also in love with Shaw and shoots the guy about to hang Shaw, exposing everyone. Dog also had his cannons ready and ordered his crew to start firing and declare war. Both ships come face to face and start to bombard each other with cannonballs. Shaw escapes Dog's ship by swinging to Morgan's ship. Both ships keep on firing at each other. The governor and some of his men die due to explosions. Bald Dude brings Morgan's ship close to Dog's ship, and a close fight begins. Shaw goes back to Dog's ship so that he can bring back the treasure. Dog and Morgan's crew go to each other's ships and fight. Morgan orders her men to separate her ship from Dog's ship when she blows it up. Otherwise, her ship will also sink. And she swings to Dog's ship and starts to fight his men. She takes care of 2 men who attack her. Then she takes care of another man, and then she somersaults to the deck below. Shaw also arrives on Dog's ship and goes below the deck to the cargo bay where the treasure is being held. The treasure is tied down with chains. He fires at the chains to free the treasure, but to no avail. Morgan also arrives on the floor above him and picks up a barrel filled with gunpowder and starts throwing gunpowder everywhere. She lights the gunpowder from a distance and watches as the stash of gunpowder explodes. Because of the shockwave made by the explosion, Shaw is trapped between the treasure and a pillar. Morgan's crew immediately starts to cut the ropes and distance their ship from Dog's ship. Morgan opens up the hatch and sees Shaw trapped, but Dog arrives, and Morgan tells Shaw that after taking care of Dog, she will come and rescue him. Then she takes out her sword and dagger and prepares to fight her uncle. Morgan and Dog both start fighting. Dog is stronger than Morgan, so she climbs up the mast, and Dog comes after her. They both start fighting once again on the mast, and Morgan's crew watches from below. But Dog fights ferociously, and Morgan loses her sword, and Dog beats her up badly and brings her to the corner of the mast. Morgan is holding onto a rope for her dear life, and Dog cuts the rope, and Morgan falls to the ground, but she lands on soft stuff and survives the fall. Dog wanted to end Morgan's life. That's why he came down with the help of a rope. Morgan, now injured, puts a cannonball and gunpowder in a cannon and hides it under a cloth. And when Dog arrives to end Morgan's life, she removes the cloth and lights the fuse of the cannon. At that moment, Dog sees his whole life flashing in front of his eyes, and he flies across the ship's breaking walls and emerges from the back and falls into the water like a dead body. When Morgan goes down again to save Shaw, the whole floor is filled with water, and Shaw is underwater and is about to die. So she gives him some air so that he can stay alive, and then she frees Shaw with the help of a stick. Shaw tells her to flee because the ship is about to explode, but Morgan goes underwater and ties a barrel with the treasure, and she comes out. Morgan and Shaw both go to the top deck as their crew watches, because Dog's ship is about to explode at any moment. As they both jump from the top deck into the water, the ship is destroyed by a huge explosion, and its pieces fall all over the place. But both Morgan and Shaw make it out alive. Shaw tells Morgan that if we had gotten the treasure, it would have been nice, but the treasure also drowned. At that time, a barrel emerges from the water, and Morgan tells Shaw indeed the treasure drowned, but now I know where it is, and we can bring it back up. Morgan's crew brings back the treasure on board, and Morgan tells her crew that we will divide this treasure equally, and now you all are rich. You can go wherever you see fit, but I would suggest that we stay together and hunt for more treasure even larger than this one. And everyone agrees, and Shaw gives Morgan her captain's sword. They both kiss, and the crew sets off to seek more treasures even larger than this Spanish treasure. And here, the movie ends. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.